Bethany Tarbell, and many of you know me as the grants manager here at the New Hampshire Community Loan Fund. Thank you for taking the time out for this presentation. And when nonprofits seek to get in touch, it's usually about immediate scary needs and forward-looking conversations. But today we're going to look back at a successful and meaningful project, The Big Deal, a project made possible by you. The presentation is about 20 minutes and there'll be plenty of time for questions at the end. The presentation part will be recorded for a couple of people who couldn't make this lunch, but the Q&A session will not be recorded. But first, let me introduce Steve Saltzman, our new president who started in the spring of this year. Some of you have already met Steve, but for those who have not, he's going to say a few words about what brought him to New Hampshire, and then we will start the presentation. So, okay, Steve, over to you.
Hi, Bethany, and I want to join her in thanking everybody for joining this webinar and also for your support of the Community Loan Fund, and especially The Big Deal. And by introduction, I'll answer the question that everybody keeps asking me, what the heck I'm doing in New Hampshire? Why would I leave Charleston, South Carolina? And there are really three answers for that. There are 1,200 CDFIs in the United States, Community Development Financial Institutions, that have been around for 40 years. But to my mind, there are really 6 or 7 that are responsible for every innovation in the field. And this is one of them. And about 10 years ago, I heard Julie Eade speak, and what she said really resonated with me pretty deeply. And I had the good fortune to work for one of those other 6 or 7 really influential CDFIs. My old boss was literally the first MacArthur Genius Award winner. And I knew what the power of these organizations were. And the second one is that, so there are these 1,200 CDFIs that try to make useful community development impact. And they really do. They make great impact on individuals. But of those 1,200 CDFIs, most of their work is for demonstration purposes. They don't really make a material impact in their state. But if you look at New Hampshire, 1/3 of the manufactured housing communities in New Hampshire are owned by the residents. I mean, at a time where everybody is really cynical about issues like climate change and affordable housing, the Community Loan Fund has actually made a material impact on affordable housing in the state of New Hampshire, and it's spun out a national nonprofit to do the same. It isn't virtue signaling, it isn't vanity. I mean, they really are making a demonstrable change. And the third is that the people who work at the Community Loan Fund are really different than the people I think who work at other CDFIs. And this isn't politically correct to say, but I'll say it, they're better. They reflect the communities in which we serve, that the clients that we work with, they're not abstractions, and people didn't learn about the importance of affordable housing in a graduate seminar at Princeton, which is a wonderful thing to do if you can get into one. But the work is very different because the people we work with and we serve are our neighbors, their cousins, and their sisters. And I think in my own life, I wanted to be closer to the work. And I don't share some of the gravitas and authenticity of my teammates, but I'm drawn to work with them. And that's what brought me to New Hampshire. If we discount the fact that I love to ski, mountain bike, and hike every minute I'm not on a Zoom meeting. But with that, let me turn this over, since I had absolutely nothing to do with The Big Deal whatsoever. Let me turn it over to the VP, our Vice President of Rock, New Hampshire, Tara Reardon, and she's going to tell you how we did it.
Thanks, Steve. So for over 37 years, the Community Loan Fund has helped residents, mostly low and moderate income residents, secure and stabilize their housing. And that just made my script disappear here. Thank you. And buy the land under their manufactured homes. 140 cooperatives and over 8,500 households later, that's almost 25% of all the manufactured housing in New Hampshire. And the work continues and the movement grows both here in New Hampshire and nationwide. Resident-owned communities, we like to call them ROCs, stabilize home ownership, build community, and develop leadership. Each one of them is a little democracy. And Homes and Rocks actually appreciate and value, allowing manufactured homeowners to build equity and access lending sources to meet typical household needs and opportunities, such as home improvement and educational costs. So manufactured homes are affordable workforce housing and a key part of the long-term solution for affordable housing in New Hampshire and elsewhere. Rental costs in New Hampshire average $1,341 per month. That's a two-bedroom home with utilities. But an equivalent manufactured home in a rock is $890 a month, and that includes lot rent, utilities, and the mortgage payment. The average home sales price in New Hampshire just tipped over $400,000 a year, a home, and the average home price for a new manufactured home is about $100,000. Homeowners in Rocks use cooperative ownership to stabilize those housing expenses. So the day before Thanksgiving in 2018, the residents of 4 parks that we've come to call the Big Deal, and they include more than 1,000 homeowners, received a 60-day notice that their parks were for sale. These weren't just any communities, they're large, well-kept communities being sold as a portfolio that investors are competing for every day. So the Big Deal represented the largest park portfolio in New Hampshire and had a total value over $60 million. And the timing of the notice was designed, we think, to make it difficult for residents to organize their parks. Their 60 days to organize and submit offers on the parks included not only Thanksgiving, a day away, but the entire holiday season, right through Christmas and New Year's. The real challenge was to assist these homeowners in buying the land under their homes while maintaining affordability, since their lot rents were already at the top of the market with no room to increase them any further at all. So the work began with Rock NH canvassing the communities to get information out to the residents and locate the largest meeting spaces we can find. These were really big communities. The competing buyer trying to buy the communities was already the 3rd largest owner of manufactured housing communities in the nation and organized its own meetings to pitch its ownership to the residents. The current owner of the parks at that time, a Canadian private company, wanted maximum value for the property. And it's well known that this asset class is a high return investment, and the competition for these large parks is just fierce. So that not only drives up the price, but constantly challenges the ability of the residents to compete with the private equity money and low-cost capital that are really barriers to resident purchases. New Hampshire's 60-day notice law, which has been in place since the 1980s, provides that opportunity for homeowners. It requires notice to our state housing finance agency when the park's for sale and has received an outside offer, and then New Hampshire Housing informs a community loan fund. So the law helps us contact, organize, educate, train, and prepare the residents to perform the financial analysis, engineering due diligence, and decision-making needed to acquire their community. The 60-day notice law is essential for the homeowners to have a chance to own these communities and control their financial future. So through the holidays and the winter of 2019, all 4 communities voted to become Rocks. Unfortunately, engineering due diligence reports for the Kingstown mobile home park revealed that 15 of those homes were in a floodway. That led to a decision which involved the Rocks members voting to terminate the purchase and sales agreement on that community. But in July of 2019, the other 3 of the Big Deal communities located in North Conway, Allenstown, and Keene became Rocks. That preserved 874 homes and 874 households who now know that their house is stable and secure. The total, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Bonnie Skardova, our Chief Financial Officer, to talk a little bit about the project costs associated with the Big Deal.
Thank you, Tara. So the total project cost for the 3 Rocks to purchase their communities was $57.3 million. Banks loaned $38 million for the first mortgages at a blended rate of 4.25%. And the Community Loan Fund loaned $17.25 million for the subordinate mortgages. To keep it affordable, the Rocks needed $4.15 million in subordinate third mortgages at 0% per 10 years. In addition, we committed another $2 million in loans to bridge the public financing that was committed to the Rocks from the Community Development Finance Authority and New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority. Our Rock NH staff helped the residents successfully apply for 1.5 million in CDBG grants, which went directly into lowering the purchase price of each park. And the Housing Authority invested $500,000 at 0%. A project this big was tremendous opportunity for the 874 families to save their affordable housing permanently and to finally stabilize their lot rents. And this happened thanks to the support of so many donors and investors that came together at a critical time and in a big way. To make the deal work, to help the residents purchase their parks and to keep those lot rents affordable, the deal ultimately required this mix of capital: $13.8 million in low-cost investments with interest rates ranging from 0 to 2%, and $3.1 million in grants and donations that were needed to leverage the investments, plus the $2 million in public funding from CDBG and New Hampshire Housing. So we raised $3.1 million in donations for lending from a wide variety of donors who rallied around the urgent needs of these families. The donations were mainly from the 9 foundations listed here. Plus, we received donations from 9 different individual donors. And we also raised $272,000 in donations to help cover the program delivery costs for organizing and providing the technical assistance to the residents throughout the conversion process and afterwards. The donations from foundations and individuals are critically important to the project. They were needed to help us leverage the large amount of debt capital that was necessary to finance the project. The project could only support a finite amount of debt, and without the donations, the project couldn't have happened. And these donations were also needed so that we could provide that $4 million in subordinate loans that the parks needed at 0%. And that was the real stretch in the deal. Having the grants meant that the whole financing package and that the lot rents were kept affordable for the residents. And for the investors, a large amount of low-cost debt capital was needed to support the project. You can see here the range of foundations and banks and individuals and others that came through with the right investment capital in support of the project. So ultimately, the deal needed the $13.8 million in investments that range from 0 to 2%, again, so that the financing package and the lot rents were kept affordable for the residents. The generous support of so many donors, investors in New Hampshire and nationally was key in making the whole big deal happen. And we're so grateful to all of our supporters near and far. You all helped what make look impossible possible. After the residents purchased the 3 big deal communities in July 2019, the work didn't stop there. So I'll turn the mic back over to Tara, who can give you an update about the work that's been happening since the residents took ownership and how the parks are faring today. Tara?
Thanks, Bonnie. In the first year, the Community Loan Fund staff conducted a total of 274 hours of technical assistance. That's the equivalent of almost 7 weeks to the 3 rocks. And the Community Loan Fund staff also visited these 3 rocks a total of 41 times. Residents on the board and interested members attended our statewide leadership training and rock boot camps to learn how to run these multi-million-dollar businesses that were now their responsibility. Since acquisition, 5 board members from Tanglewood Cooperative and Keene took part in the next leadership class program we have had, and leaders from Black Bear and Conway and Bearview and Allenstown are taking part in the next year's class. Classes pivoted from in-person to remote online classes this past year. Individuals in those programs learned communication skills, meeting management, conflict resolution, and municipal processes. And the program includes specific topics on local and state government, infrastructure, finance and insurance, leadership through effective communication, and problem solving and legal issues. Participation in the leadership series creates relationships and fosters peer-to-peer networking between these new residents of Rocks. The leadership program also is a foundational effort for other efforts a rock may undertake, and those include things like infrastructure and repair, filling vacant lots, and adding to or improving a community center that they have. At its root, the Community Loan Fund empowers and teaches residents how to practice responsible democracy. Operating a rock is a lot like running a small town. Democracies can be messy, and employing conflict resolution, effective communication, and community rules management are essential for their long-term success in leadership succession. Leaders from all three of the Big Deal communities volunteered to participate in the boot camp trainings that we offer to all ROCs. And being on a ROC board can be a transformative experience. Many board members have gone on to use the training and experience in other areas, such as achieving municipal and state leadership positions and promotions at work. Our boot camps not only empower ROC leaders to make their communities safer and healthier, better connected, and build leadership capacity, we offer specialized training for operations managers. This training helps them understand their infrastructure systems, asset management, and capital improvement planning. We also bring in an engineer in those cases to assist in that training. The Big Deal ROCs also came with 78 empty lots. And Big Deal board members have been participating in training on how to fill those empty lots. The Community Loan Fund developed a new financial product to help the ROCs place an empty home, a home on an empty lot called an RLOC, or a revolving line of credit. So far, 18 lots have already been filled, and there's more in the planning stage. This represents an important affordable housing opportunity in an incredibly tight housing market. It's good not only for the new home buyer, but it's also good for the ROC. Every new lot rent adds to their monthly budget for a healthier and more financially stable community. As part of the training to fill those lots for the residents, we've created some educational videos, and we'd like to share one of those with you today.
Welcome to our series designed to walk you through the process of filling vacant lots in your community. Every co-op has had an empty lot at one time or another. And while you can't always control the reason for that vacancy, there's a lot you can do to get another home on it. Empty lots reduce a co-op's income between $3,000 and $6,000 each year. That's money that could help reduce or stabilize rent, upgrade your water, wastewater, electrical and road systems, or even pay for community wish list items like a new playground or beautification projects. This video series explores why and how to fill your co-op's empty lots. This information can be used by any resident-owned community, which we call ROCs, anywhere. Even if your co-op is full today, there's a strong chance you'll have an empty lot in the future. Knowing how to fill them quickly can help you from missing out on potential buyers and income. We'll walk you through how to prepare for an infill project and how to create and implement a marketing plan. We'll discuss what kind of help you might need, how to select and place a home on your vacant lot, and of course, selling the home. We'll also present some options for helping you pay for the project. And we've used the word infill several times already, but what does it mean? Simply put, infill is the process of turning the undeveloped or vacant lots in your community from this into this. Whether the home that will go on the lot is a double or single wide, new or used, the process is the same. We've already mentioned the most obvious benefit of infilling, the maximum amount of rent income for the co-op. Try this exercise. Multiply the number of vacant lots in your co-op times the monthly rent. That's how much income the co-op is losing every month. It might be a few $100s for some, or others several thousand. Over the course of a year, those numbers add up quickly. But there are other reasons to infill. Vacant lots are not usually attractive. Potential home buyers will wonder, why are there so many vacancies? Maybe this isn't a good place to live. That's not an impression you want to give. Also, the more homes in your co-op, the more potential volunteers you have. New members are often eager to get involved, serve on a committee, or become a board member. Every co-op can benefit greatly from even one more dedicated member. The infill process gives your co-op leaders opportunities to network with realtors, contractors, town officials, and other professionals in the community. Building these relationships can be helpful in the future. So that's what infill is and why it's important. If you have questions or comments, please reach out to your co-op's technical assistance provider. The rest of the videos in this series will provide guidance for infilling your co-op.
Oops, unmute myself here. I'd like to do a little segue before we conclude and introduce Steve Barnum, our Director of Communications and Marketing. He recently moved to a resident-owned community, and he's going to share with you his experiences living there.
Hi, I'm Steve. So my job today is to give you kind of a street level view and then to tell you a story that speaks really to the transformative work we do. I bought my home in a resident-owned community last spring. I've been renting a small one-bedroom apartment, and the new corporate owners wanted to raise my rent $350 over the course of 2 years. Now I live in a manufactured home that I own. I have half again as much floor space. I'm saving $500 a month in housing costs. And I've got a huge back deck that looks over a hayfield and all the critters that graze there. I'm actually a little disappointed because I had 7 really fat wild turkeys in my backyard this morning, and I wanted to show them to you, but they moved on to greener pastures. The community I live in is for people age 55 and over. Most residents here are retired. Many have very little income, and maybe a quarter, including the neighbors on both sides of me, have disabilities. So one floor living in a modest size home with small house lots and neighbors who look in on them is a pretty ideal housing situation for them, and frankly, for me. When my neighbors voted to buy their community 6 years ago, signing those legal papers meant people who had been residents and rent payers were now co-owners of a $4.25 million corporation. Let me repeat that. A group of 100 renters, very few of whom had ever run a business or even served on a board of directors, now responsible not only for a $4.25 million corporation, but also for the housing futures of all their neighbors. And a lot of the work here is done by volunteers. So a few Sundays ago, a few of us went door to door to remind people to attend our annual membership meeting and to offer rides for people who need them. On meeting night, we sat on folding chairs in a very echoey, I think what used to be a garage at the end of my street. We elected a board of directors. We approved a community budget for the coming year. We talked about trees being removed and houses being moved in, and generally did the business of making this a great neighborhood to live in. And it really is a great neighborhood to live in. I'm going to introduce you to someone by sharing my screen. So hang on a second. No, not you. Okay. One thing about co-ops, from the moment you pull your truck or van up to your new house and start unloading, neighbors stop by to say hi, welcome you, ask if there's anything you need. And that's what happened when Amanda Say, a young mom of 2, moved with her family into a resident-owned community in Raymond. Amanda kept the books part-time for her dad's roofing business. So it was no time at all before she was asked to be the co-op's treasurer. She had volunteered on the board a few months when she got up from the dinner table one night to attend her meeting, and her young son, the little guy pictured here, asked, "Why do you always have to go to meetings?" She told him it was because she was one of the people in charge of where they live, and his eyes got big. My mom's in charge. And she realized through her son's eyes the long-reaching impact of the work she was doing. Amanda describes the person she was then as quote, very low confidence, a turtle who slowly peeked out once in a while. But as the co-op's treasurer, she's responsible for managing a budget, creating fiscal reports, and all those financial details. She got lots of training and support from the Rock NH staff, and at one point was invited to attend a grant writing seminar. Now, Amanda had thought of grants as something out there, something other people did, something other people got, really had no idea what they were all about. But now at the training, she's sitting among municipal officials, school officials, leaders of nonprofits in the area, and she realized, all these people are regular people and they're writing grants. And I can write grants too. Soon afterwards, she heard a radio ad for a beauty school that offered scholarships. Because of her grant training, she had the confidence to apply, got the scholarship, and attended the school, and it didn't cost a penny. It was all because I went to that seminar, she said. Since she attended Rock and H's leadership training, did write multiple successful grant applications, and became a professional hairstylist. If I'd never gotten on the board, I never would have had these opportunities, she told me. It just makes you keep thinking ahead, ahead, ahead. What can I do now? Bethany, back to you.
Why does this work matter? In the last several years, large conglomerates have become serious buyers of manufactured home parks. In 2016, a large conglomerate purchased 135 parks in 13 states. Last fall, another one spent $550 million on 40 parks. And finally, a private equity firm worth $246 billion is also a major park buyer, spending hundreds of millions of dollars on parks in the last 2 years. When a conglomerate buys a park, it might say to the residents, your rents will not rise, at least not right away. What does happen is this. Services once included in the basic rent, such as water, trash collection, and snow plowing, suddenly come with additional fees. Water meters are almost immediately installed. There are often new insurance fees for things such as potential damage by pets. Pools and playgrounds are sometimes closed because the conglomerates do not want to maintain them. And eventually, inevitably, the rents rise. The big deal rocks also represent a significant test situation. Manufactured home residents now own 33% of all New Hampshire parks, which could present a tipping point for how this housing type operates in the future. Will it operate to the advantage of low-income people or to the advantage of national manufactured home park operators and their equity investors? So once again, thank you to help all of you who made this possible. You directly impacted the lives of 874 homeowners and helped cement the strength of Rocks in New Hampshire going forward.